Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hello. If you are returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate you. So today's video, we're going to be talking about a topic that I have been thinking about for a really long time. And I've honestly been kind of scared to talk about because I don't want to do it incorrectly. I think I've gotten to a point where I think I can articulate myself to the best way that I possibly can. Today we're going to be talking about the weird brand of feminism that presents itself in the fat acceptance movement. In my Virgie Tovar history lesson, I briefly talked about me kind of having my come to moment with this whole topic. I finally was kind of starting to realize that a lot of the rhetoric surrounding the fat acceptance movement is inherently anti-feminist, which is odd because so many of them are so loud about being feminist, which I am too. I make it abundantly clear on my channel, if you couldn't just tell by looking at me and everything behind me. I am about as left-leaning and feminist as they come, right? I think it's so interesting that the stuff that they continue to talk about and to spew on the internet so aggressively is actually, in my opinion, very anti-feminist. And I wasn't sure if I was grasping at straws or just making something out of nothing. But then I kind of brought that thought process up in my Virgie Tovar video. And a lot of comments very much agreed with me, a lot of them being from people who are much more qualified to talk about this topic than I am. And so I was like, all right, sweet. There is something here. I also want to say that this video probably isn't going to have a whole bunch of facts or anything in it, research behind it like some of my other videos do. It's more just talking about things that I noticed in the fat acceptance world, both while when I was in it and taking in content from it as someone who supported it, and now as someone who no longer supports it, and is kind of looking at all of that in hindsight, and just stuff that I find when I'm looking for TikToks or whatever for my TikTok reaction videos. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be talking about today. Very lighthearted topic. But before we get into today's video, I want to thank today's video sponsor, Beducated. Now, Beducated is another one of those brands that I am so excited to work with because I have been so interested in their product. I'm so excited that that day is finally here. I think Beducated is another brand that is doing something very, very special and important in the realm of sexual wellness and sexual health. If you don't know what Beducated is, Beducated brings pleasure-based sexual education directly to you in your own bedroom. They have over 100 courses and it's for anybody, no matter your relationship status, your sexual orientation, your gender identity, any of that. There is something for truly everybody, and that is one of my favorite things about the platform. Beducated can really help people enjoy sex more, communicate better in their relationships, and most importantly, in my opinion, it helps build confidence. Another one of my favorite things about Beducated is how they offer courses in all aspects of intimacy and sexual health and all of that. It's not just the act or learning how to do a certain technique better, which those are also important, don't get me wrong. But I really enjoy the fact that they offer courses about online dating for everybody, understanding gender or gender identity and sexual orientation if that's something you want to explore within yourself. They also offer courses in menstrual cycle wellness, things relating to endometriosis. They have a course on keeping and setting boundaries within your relationships, which I think everybody could benefit from, no matter the kind of relationship you are in. They cover so many other topics on their platform that are so much more than just sex ed. I should mention that all of these classes, and I don't know if I've said, but there are more than 100 of them, are taught by some of the world's leading experts in whatever you're going to learn about. And on top of that, I really do think the inclusivity on Beducated is something that cannot be ignored. Another thing that I really, really appreciate is that in the more sex ed based courses, they have courses that are pertaining to people with disabilities or people with chronic pain, which that is something that is so important because those people are oftentimes so excluded from that conversation, right? And that was just something that I went in not expecting, but when I saw, I was like, oh my god, how cool. I really think that Beducated offers a truly inclusive and non-judgmental approach to sex ed, and I think that's something that, at least in America, a lot of people can't relate to, and a lot of people could probably use. I really think they're doing something special and really give everybody a place to go to learn about and navigate some of the most vulnerable topics that maybe we don't want to ask people about, and we just want to go watch a video in our own time. And I just really appreciate the platform for that. So this holiday season, give yourself or somebody that you love the gift of pleasure. Beducated is offering my subscribers a 1-day free trial along with 40% off an annual pass. And if you use the link in my description and my coupon code MEGANANNE, that's MEGANANNE, they also have a 14-day money-back guarantee, so there's really nothing to lose here. So be sure to check out Beducated using the link in my description. I really do think it is something very cool and unique and special, and something that everybody could benefit from. Thank you so much to Beducated for sponsoring today's video, and thank you as always to you guys, my viewers and my subscribers, for continuing to interact with my content so that brands like Beducated want to work with me. So yeah, thank you to Beducated and thank you to you, and let's get back into it. Like I said, like in my Virginie video, I talked about how I really started to notice while researching her, because she is someone who makes a lot of her brand about like fighting the patriarchy through fighting fat phobia and like all of that kind of stuff, that a lot of what she talked about, in my opinion, was inherently anti-feminist. And I realized when I started talking about it, like how nuanced ish of a topic that this was going to be, because I understand where fat activists are coming from, thinking that what they are doing is feminism. And in some ways it is, and I get it. And so, but I also think that because there is some like nugget of truth and validity to what they are saying in terms of, in the context of feminism, that like that's what makes it so dangerous and so easy to fall into their messaging in other realms, right? I was gonna make a whole video on like why I think the fat activist movement and the fat acceptance movement and the fat liberation movement, whatever you want to call it, is mostly women, because I get a lot of criticism on here that I am another woman tearing women down. And like, I can honestly understand that criticism, but it also doesn't help that like this is the content that I've chosen to talk about, and the vast majority of the people in the content that I've chosen to talk about are women or femme-presenting people. I don't think the reason why is a hard thing to grasp, because like since the dawn of time, like women have constantly had their bodies scrutinized, criticized, and policed, right? And we're still seeing it today, like with Roe v. Wade being overturned a few years ago. Like, and I think it's interesting though, because for a while, like it was very in vogue to like be plump, because it meant that you had enough money to eat. But around those times as well, and I'm working on a more in-depth video that's like, it's gonna be like a body positivity, fat acceptance history lesson, like I usually do on creators. I'm doing it on like this whole movement to the best of my ability, because there is a lot to cover there. But around that same time, when it was like en vogue to be more plump, is also when like the first fad diet was written by a man, but then it was like twisted so many times to be remarketed so many times as diets that were aimed towards women. Like anyone can say what they want, but like we can't ignore the fact that like the ideas that women have constantly had shoved down their throats about how they should look, how they should act, all of that kind of stuff, we're very much just feeding into the archaic ideals that women should be attracted to men and that we were only made to bear children, right? And for a very long time, and even still now to a certain extent, I do think that fat women are looked at to be less desirable. And like I've experienced that in my own terms, because I had weight loss surgery 5 years ago. I used to be well over 300 pounds. I got below like 200 pounds, and the attention that I got like significantly varied, but that also could be because of like my confidence levels changing a little bit and like all that kind of stuff. That's a long story, but like I've experienced that to some degree myself. But like I've talked about when it comes to preferences and stuff, I really think that a lot of preferences that consenting adults have towards each other are very hard to describe or explain, you know what I mean? And so I've always been a big proponent of the fact that like so long as you're not like hateful with your preferences, that's all that really matters. But desirability aside, again, based on my own experience, like I do think that fat women in particular, like I said, are treated differently a lot of times in society as well, and particularly when it does come to the medical system. And that's why I think when they start talking about how like your doctor weighing you at your appointment is fat phobic or whatever, it waters down a much bigger issue, because like women already are not treated well in the medical system, at least in America for the most part. And I've experienced that because as a fat teen, my chronic illness that I developed when I was a teenager was written off as hormones and me just needing to lose weight so many times. And so like, imagine my surprise, and I have a whole video on this, imagine my surprise when I lost 100+ pounds and my chronic illness got worse. I think that was ignored for a really long time, not only because of my weight, but also because of my gender. And so I think when they start making weird false equivalencies of like, oh, your doctor just weighing you, getting a vital sign is fat phobic, they start watering down an issue that actually exists. But they focus on like a lot of the little things, at least in my experience consuming that kind of content. Honestly, like I think the reason why that activism movement has managed to hang on so long in the context of being a feminist movement also is because in the rise of like modern day fat activism, body positivity, whatever you want to call it, like in the early 2010s, it was something that like women actually kind of needed, because it was coming out of like the heroin chic, the like thin is in, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels kind of time, right? And I think a lot of women and young girls, myself included, were sick of seeing that, because that kind of body type was and still is like so impossible to achieve, but it was being held as like the standard for what made a desirable woman, and we were sick of it. And so like when Tess Holliday came into the picture, I really think that she's kind of like, she opened the floodgates really of like, this is body positivity, this is inclusivity, this is feminism. And I really do think that like that was something that is needed. And I do think it's something that's still needed, because I think I'm the first to say that like I think all representation is important in media, in whatever, so long as it's not like performative, which I really don't think Tess was to begin with. I think it is, Tess and what the fat activism community has become is performative now. And I think a lot of female and femme presenting fat activists now think that they are making a notable contribution to modern day feminism, simply because they're like fat women, fat femme presenting people. When I say women, I'm also meaning like femme presenting people. I do believe in intersectionality and feminism, okay? They think that they're making a notable contribution to modern day feminism as it is now, because they are fat women, like living life, being loud, dressing how they want, like, and not really giving a fuck. But really, I think that fat activism has gone a little off the rails, and in turn has started to go against the message that they are actively trying to spread in the context of feminism. I think one of the main things that like always boggles my mind when it comes to fat activists today, and like how they claim to be staunch feminists, and like how a lot of them reference like the history of the fat acceptance, the body positivity movement, like prove points and stuff, is that contrary to their popular belief, fat activism was not started by fat black queer women like they like to say, and I've talked about in other videos.
What do you want from body positivity? Because I have been struggling now for 2 years on this app to figure out why skinny people keep making videos like this, and then they have never made a video saying what A, they would like to contribute to a body positive movement, and B, what it is they would like from the fat people, particularly the fat black women, who birthed body positivity into existence. What structural discrimination, what marginalization are you experiencing that you need our support for? And are you willing to do the work to unlearn your fat phobia in the process, or do you want us to just be okay with the fact that you have insecurities about gaining weight and being fat or looking fat? Hey, fat people aren't mad at you because you lost weight. They're mad because the second you did, you used your thin privilege to body check, shit on other fat creators, and discredit a movement started in the 1960s by fat, black, queer, and disabled women to fight against fat oppression. You're not under attack because you're skinny now. You're under attack because you're fat phobic.
It was created by 3 very white men for their own personal gain.
But look around this room, she said, and you can't deny there are many attractive women here. This model bride was attractive enough to catch the fancy of the man who stands beside her. They were married a year ago.
I'm happy with my husband, and I'm happy with my life. I'm me. It doesn't matter whether I weigh 150 pounds or 350 pounds.
And you weigh 350?
Mm-hmm.
375?
375, he'll brag.
A lot of the guys are in the closet about liking fat women. They come here, they're single guys. They don't want their friends to know they're with fat women.
It's very hard when people ridicule the type of women that you like and say they're ugly. And they laugh at you when you walk with them arm in arm down the street. Some people like to look at fat people. I love to look at a fat woman on the beach. If I saw Marilyn Monroe or Gina Lollobrigida on the beach, they turn me off. It's just like looking at a bull.
Like, this fact alone goes against a lot of what they are trying to say. And I honestly think that they are missing like a big marketing point, like a big marketing tactic that they could really latch onto here by saying that, like, yeah, this was started by 3 men and perpetuated by like conventions where like men had a fetish for fat women would come and make these women feel desirable. Like, we turned that around. Now it's basically dominated by women lifting each other up. I think that is a notable marketing ploy that they are missing out on, but that's besides my point. The fat acceptance movement is documented to have been started by Steve Post, Lou Louderbeck, and Will Favre. And notice we have names of the names of those men. And these men have admitted themselves that, like, one of them really only did it as a publicity stunt because I think he was a journalist, and then another one did it because he married a fat woman and wanted it to be seen as more socially acceptable. And he even used the terms like he felt like he was in the closet when it came to his attraction to fat women, which that whole idea in itself I think is like a valid thing to push back on as a fat woman. I get that. Like, I get how pushing back towards that mentality could be seen as feminist and as standing up for yourself. This seems like a good time to remind people to go check out Beducated using the link below in my description and use my code MEGANANNE, that's MEGANANNE at checkout for 40% off an annual pass, because they do have lots of courses for safely exploring specific sexual interests that anybody may have. Okay, bye! But if you don't want to wait for like my longer video on it, Nadia Nymph has a really great video covering the first like 30 years of the documented fat acceptance movement, and I'll have that linked down below, and that helped me a lot as like a starting point for my video. But like off the topic of desirability and stuff too, they are a big proponent of saying that if you are not attracted to a fat woman or a fat person, you are fat phobic.
Hey bestie! You're wrong. I think it's time for another adult pre-K lesson. What do you think? All right, turn your listening ears on. Zoop, catch a bubble in your mouth. Good job. Okay, here's the thing. Having a preference is something like, I'm looking for a partner who likes kayaking, or wakes up early in the morning, or loves pizza. But when your preferences exclude an entire group of marginalized people, that's problematic. Okay, that's not nice. That's not a preference. If you lump all fat people in one group together as though they are not very different individuals, that's fat phobic. Just like lumping all black people in one group and saying, I don't like black people, is racist. And lumping all disabled people in one group and saying, I don't think people in wheelchairs are hot, is ableist. Do you understand what I'm saying?
And I think this also directly goes against feminism, because just by forcing people to find you desirable, or trying to get people to find you desirable, actively goes against feminist ideals, because I really think that feminism was also birthed out of like, women aren't just objects to be desired. Does everybody want to be desired in their life? Yeah, like that's just human nature. But do I think that like trying to force people to find you desirable is a feminist move? No. And I've done that. Like I haven't forced somebody to be desirable to me, but I've tried to make myself more desirable to people who maybe just weren't worth my time. I think it's more feminist to say, hey, you're not worth my time because we met in like a romantic context and you clearly just don't find me desirable anymore, so I'm not going to pursue you anymore. I think that's more feminist than trying to say, oh, you're fat phobic because you don't find me attractive. I do think that the topic of fat activism and their obsession with desirability is something that can't be ignored in this context. So yeah. But I really don't think that it can be argued that the fat activist movement itself, at least as we know it today, like back from the 60s and the 70s, was started by men for their own personal gain, just so they could like ogle at fat women. And I think it's also interesting that, and this is going into my next point, that they decide to tout this as something that was started as a win from fat black queer women. And I will say it till I'm blue in the face, like I really think that they do this to shield criticism away from their otherwise weak arguments, because like it would be cool if it was started by fat black queer women, if we had documentation of it, and we don't have documentation of it. And so if it was true, that would be awesome, but it's not true. It's kind of like how we know today that what we know as Pride Month and Pride originates back to a riot in Stonewall that a black trans woman started. Like, we have documentation of that, and that is something that we as queer people celebrate, right? But we shouldn't just bring black women into our arguments as to why certain things are bad and certain things are right, just to like add validity to it, right? And so like even before the Virgie Tovar video that I talked about, I had researched my like fat activism and oppression video that like admittedly popped off way more than I thought it was going to, and that was basically stemmed off of the fact that they bring in black women so much into their arguments, and it's just blatantly obvious to me that they do it to shield their weak arguments from criticism. We don't have any documentation of any fat black queer women starting this movement. We do have some like some of the videos that I'm gonna show in my my full history video. There are black women at these conventions. Like, I'm not saying that they weren't there, but I will say that there's also a whole lot of white women talking about their oppression and also comparing it to the struggles that can't be changed, like race. And so I'll put that here.
Society feels that we can really change. Black people can change. Other minority groups, other ethnic background, people with ethnic backgrounds, they can change. Fat people can change.
Just for now. And keep in mind, this was in the 1970s, so not too far after like Jim Crow laws were abolished, which like that was just a legal move, right? We cannot say that societally things changed very much. So the fact that that point was even made at that time, it was a choice. Besides the fact that it was an obvious shield from criticism, I couldn't put it into words why it just felt icky to me that black women were brought into this argument so often. And I know that I am a white woman talking about this, okay? And I know that that in itself comes with privilege, and I don't want that to go like unacknowledged throughout this whole section of the video, okay? Like, I know that I only am understanding it as I am seeing it, not as I am experiencing it. I referenced in my other video about fat acceptance and their oppression and stuff, I referenced another video from a creator called Alana Melissa. I think she does a great job explaining why this is harmful to black women. And obviously Alana does not speak for all black women, but I think what she says in this video, and I'm going to show a clip here, I think what she says in this video is also what I've seen echoed a million times in my comments since starting to talk about this more on my platform. Hi, Editing Megan here. These are two clips from actually like two separate videos of Alana's, and I do have them like cut down and sped up a little bit just for like brevity, and I also don't want to take too much from her videos either. I will have her linked down below, and these two videos in particular, because she talks about so many important points as it pertains to this topic, and I don't want to just like parrot what she says because that wouldn't be fair, but I just thought these would be good to supplement in here, but I will have her videos down below. Also, just for clarity and going off of a point that Alana will make in these clips, I use the term women of color like throughout this whole segment, but I am talking about black women, and I didn't like realize the harm that there could be in like grouping women of color together like that, and I have learned my lesson and I will not do that anymore. But yeah, just for clarity, I wanted to say that as well. I'm trying really hard not to be part of the problem, guys.
What do you want from body positivity? Because I have been struggling now for 2 years on this app to figure out why skinny people keep making videos like this, and then they have never made a video saying what A, they would like to contribute to a body positive movement, and B, what it is they would like from the fat people, particularly the fat black women, who...
Stop. This is what the fuck I'm talking about. This is what the fuck I be talking about in my motherfucking video. This is it. Notice how the original poster and the lady who stitched are both white women. Ain't got nothing to do with a person who looks like me. This is what the fuck I'm talking about. And all of a sudden, black women are thrown into this. All of a sudden, what do you want to do with a fat black woman? Yo, stop. This ain't got nothing to do with us. Stop. You are literally using black women as the plight for your activism. Let me relax. Because what the fuck is this? It's almost like I want to cry, but I really, really like my makeup and I don't want to fuck it up. And my blush is from NARS, and that's too much money. That's too much money collectively spent on my face to cry over this shit, but this shit will bring me to tears. Because what the fuck is this? I promise you, the majority of black women spend their days minding their business and not dealing with these type of movements. We don't have nothing to do with this. A lot of fat activists will tell you that this movement was created for fat women of color, and I take a large issue with that. For one, leave black women especially, out of your agendas. This is not just for Haze, this is for a lot of movements that I see online. Leave black people out of your agendas. I'm dead ass. Like, we just want to exist. We just want to exist without being tied to our race half the time. But the fact that people, especially like overly liberal, middle class white people who just don't want to get up and exercise, would use black people for their movement. And I almost think this is worse than someone who was blatantly racist. I think that underhanded racism is worse than blatant racism. Like, I would rather you tell me to my face if you don't like black people than you sit here and try to put me in the forefront of your movement, something that is only benefiting you. Because at the end of the day, right, these people that you see on Reddit and Tumblr and Instagram and stuff that have all these programs teaching you how to love yourself and how to basically ignore all of your health signs and all of your bodily signs, these people are profiting from your pain, they're profiting from your insecurities, and they're profiting from giving you a false sense of hope. And that is something that I cannot agree with, and I will not sit by and just let my black women be misled and led astray. Notice how the voices for this movement are mostly white and non-black women. People of color, my ass. When you say people of color, you just mean black people. You think that you're going to virtue signal by putting black people at the forefront of your movement. And when we are the ones who are impacted the most by obesity, yo, you must be out your fucking mind. You must be out of your mind. Like, it's irritating to see this. And you must be. And then to put black women at the forefront of all of this, you're racist. You are complicit in our destruction. It is racist. Like I said before, to put a group of people that are the most impacted by something negatively and to front as if the movement was made for them, to say, this is for you. Shame on you. Like, literally shame on you.
Because again, I know I am a white woman talking about this, and I know that comes with privilege. And so, like, if that makes you not want to hear me talk about this, that's fine. I'll have this video chaptered out. I get it. Don't worry about it. Fat activists bring up the concept of intersectionality in their arguments a lot. And I don't think I've ever like fully said it here, but like I really do believe in intersectionality as a concept. Like in the context of black women being brought into this argument, black people already exist under so much scrutiny and oppression in this world. And then add to that being a woman which is another like truly oppressed, like truly worked against group of people. I can't imagine that would make the situation a lot easier, right? And then also, like I said, I don't deny that fat people are treated differently in society when it comes to certain things. So if you're like a fat black woman, absolutely, those three things are not going to be making your life very easy, I would imagine, right? And so I'm not here to discount that at all. I know that black women exist in the fat acceptance movement, and I get that. And I honestly don't talk about their content a lot on my channel because, like, I don't want to actively suppress the voices of Black women. I do think we've come a long way in terms of like intersectional feminism, but I also know we have a hell of a long way to go. And I also think that even though we have come a long way in terms of intersectional feminism, I do think that when the majority of a movement are white women, I think that they are watering down the voices and opinions of women of color. And that is wildly unfair. They bring Black women into their arguments so much. And that's why you very rarely see me like talk about any like Black fat activist or anything like that, because I can only discredit what people are saying about an experience that I personally have had. And I have had the experience of being a fat white woman, right? And I still am a fat white woman. I will discredit fat white women's points and stuff when I think that they are harmful, but I do not know what it's like to be a fat Black woman in this society. And like I said, I think that those three things would not make your life very easy. And I don't want to be a white woman on the internet coming on here telling a fat Black woman like, hey, no, you're wrong, you know? So I think also because I think a lot of white fat activists say fat phobia is akin to racism when they are white and they have never experienced racism before is bold. White women, building up white women, talking about Black people's struggles is silencing the voices and the actual real struggles of actual fat Black women. And it actively goes against their feminist narrative and their intersectionality narrative. And I think there is something to be said about white people using their platforms and stuff to talk about Black people's struggles, but that is not the same as hearing it and listening to it from a Black person's mouth. I don't want this to be seen as another white woman, like trying to take away from this conversation. I just think that like what they are doing is hurting their cause because they are, one, silencing the voices of other women, and two, they are silencing the voices of other women of color who they care to claim so much about. Yeah. So there's that. The thing that like I started to realize also, just based off of my own personal experiences when I was researching my Virgie Tovar video, is especially when it came to her cake-related fat-phobic incident video.
A cake-related fat-phobic incident, or CRFI, is that moment when it's time to eat delicious cake and it's interrupted by a moralizing impulse. Inevitably, there's always someone at the party who has to declare publicly that their slice is too large, and that the person who's cutting the cake, almost invariably a woman, must do some disproportionate amount of labor in order to accommodate their need to feel superior. CRFIs have a history of creating a hierarchy among women and ultimately in maintaining misogynist expectations. Don't make other people be your cake nanny, because women already have too much on their plate, with a sexist culture navigating underwhelming romantic options and an absurdly inexplicable pay gap. So remember, the next time that you're on the verge of committing a CRFI, be an ally to women rather than an accomplice to patriarchy. Because, after all, patriarchy doesn't give a fuck about you, girl.
A lot of what fat activists talk about on social media in terms of like respecting fat people revolves around like protecting their feelings over your own. And so this is mainly in the context of like if you are a thin friend, you should be mindful of what you say about how you are feeling, because it could hurt your fat friend's feeling. They say this in terms of like thin women, don't call yourself fat, don't talk about your roles, don't talk about whatever in front of your fat friend, because how do you think your fat friend is gonna feel?
Oh my gosh, we're almost body twins. Like,
have a lower belly pouch.
I have a little pouch too.
Gorgeous girls.
And you're not even that much fatter than I am.
Yeah, skinny shaming and fat shaming are just not on the same level. When I lost a bunch of weight, people said that I looked way better. Well, I've gotten skinny shamed before. People tell me all the time that I'm just skin and bone and that I should eat more. Oh, yeah, no, you should definitely eat more. I think you'd look way better if you were fat. Excuse me?
And to me, this point always pissed me off because I always have been the fat friend, right? And it used to like kind of hurt my feelings when my fat friend or when my like thinner friends would talk about them feeling fat and I legitimately like was fat. Like we could not, me and the most friends could like not share clothes. Like we couldn't shop in the same sections, like all of that. Yeah, sure. But did I come to realize that like they feel this too? And like they feel this pressure again from the patriarchy, from men to look a certain way, and they do not feel like they look a certain way, and they want to talk about it, and that because it affects them mentally, and just because they are experiencing, like we are experiencing the same thing just on two different ends of the spectrum, does not mean we aren't experiencing the same thing, right? That point always bothered me because women are told all the time in any context to put your feelings aside for somebody else's. And this is something that I have been actively working through in therapy for a very long time because I come from a long, long line of female people pleasers, right? And I think it does a lot more damage than it does good. And so I think perpetuating this narrative with a primarily female audience is not helping the feminist narrative at all. I don't know why it took me so long to see this, but it was when I watched the cake-related fat-phobic incident video for like the 100th time in my life from making this channel. I think that's when I was like, whoa, you're talking about not commenting on how you want a smaller size of cake, and particularly in this context, an office setting, because you think that it harms the people who do want a larger piece of cake, who then might be in a larger body. You think it hurts their feelings, when really it's just somebody talking about not wanting a smaller or not wanting a big piece of cake. Also, I think that what she's talking about here, because she does bring up smashing the patriarchy a lot in this video, really, really waters down feminism, also makes feminism out to be something that it's not. And it makes it really hard for people who may not be feminists or may be on the edge of like fully understanding feminism. It makes it look like something that's not super desirable to be a part of. Going off of the feelings thing, I think we can all agree, if we identify as a feminist, that like the core root of feminism is for women to be able to make their own choices when it comes to what they want to do, so long as it's not like hurting people, you know, but like hurting themselves or other people. But when it comes to their body and their lifestyles, one thing that we see time and time again in fat activism is when female fat activists or femme-presenting fat activists actively bringing other women and girls down for being thin and talking about how they have body image issues, because apparently thin women can't have body image issues, and also deciding to lose weight. Like if a female or femme-presenting fat activist decides to lose weight, that is just a no-go.
On being a plus-size person, now decide that they no longer support the plus-size community?
Yeah. It's because they want to lose weight, and they don't want to be held accountable for any harmful narratives they might perpetuate about fatness in the process. These creators have been on the internet and in the body positive space long enough to know that their content does not exist in a vacuum, and that people come to them for positivity and for representation. So now that they're losing weight, or they're planning to lose weight, they know they're probably going to be held accountable by that community. And they want to post those before and afters. They want to like document their progress and be proud of themselves. But they don't think the body positive community allows that, and they're partially correct. So their only choice is to completely distance themselves from body positivity, period. I'm about to post a Patreon podcast episode going a lot more in depth on this, but what I'll say here is, a lot of us who critique these creators who lose a lot of weight and decide to make content about it, we're not critiquing the weight loss itself, we're critiquing the narratives that they push around fatness while doing it.
You can do whatever you want with your body, including intentional weight loss, but don't act like your actions exist in a vacuum, because all your actions have consequences, and when you post that sort of content, you're directly contributing to a toxic body hierarchy.
And I do think the goalpost is kind of being shifted now within the fat acceptance community that I'm seeing. Like, they're saying it's okay if it's for your health, but it can't be just because you want to look different or you want to be able to maneuver the world differently. That's not allowed. But like the thing is under feminism, women should be able to do whatever the fuck they want with their bodies, no matter how it makes somebody else feel, or no matter if it means that they need to like change their brand, right? Because women are allowed to think independently and women are allowed to change their mind. And I think actively saying that a woman deciding to lose weight for whatever reason is actively going against what feminism is all about, which is really just women being able to make their own choices in this life. And also, they always talk about how EDs are fat phobic when like the vast majority, at least that we have on record, of people who suffer from EDs are women.
Hi, not to be rude, but I don't give a fuck. I don't care what you've struggled with. I don't care, because you're giving me this unwanted health advice that I've said no to under the guise of fat phobia. So, no offense, but I don't give a fuck what you've gone through. Someone who's been fat, guess what? I don't give a fuck. I do not care about you or your life. Sorry, not sorry. Your experience does not warrant harassing me with unwanted health advice and your opinion on my body. Goodbye.
And I don't think we should be discounting other women's experiences because they're different from your own or they go against your own. I think they are actively just tearing other women down because they're not fat, and for whatever reason that might be. I think that just because women are all experiencing life differently does not make any one woman or femme-presenting person's experience more valid or better than the other. Acting in that way really goes against what I believe modern day feminism should be. And yeah, this was a very rambly video, and I'm sorry. Also, I just kind of wanted to talk authentically, like just off the cuff about this, because it's something that I've thought about a lot. And I think it's a big issue in the fat acceptance movement. And I think it started off with like good intentions in terms of like body positivity and, like I said, pushing more kinds of body types into the social norm. Because I think that did lift a big weight off of women's shoulders who were feeling like they didn't want to have to look a certain way to like be taken seriously as a woman, right? I think it kind of went off the rails from there. And it's really actively harming certain groups of women they think they are helping. And yeah, so let me know what you think down in the comments. I am a little nervous about this one. Thank you so much to Beducated for sponsoring today's video. Leave a pink heart emoji down below if you made it this far. Remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, drink your water, take your meds, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye.